Greetings! Welcome back to Old Ways Rising Farm YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a little bit more work with seeds and talking about germinating seeds beyond just your typical garden lettuce and tomatoes and the things that pop right up. Those common seeds, there's no dormancy in the seed. You plant them, they grow, done. I'm assuming it's living seed, of course, right? You can't have bad seed. But when we get into wild plants, there's more going on. Fairly recently, a couple months ago, we did a video on saving pear seeds where we talked about stratification of seed. That's dealing with one type of seed dormancy called embryo dormancy, where either an unusable food supply has to be broken down into usable or a germination inhibitor has to be removed. And that takes time at low temperature. And plants use embryo dormancy in order to regulate when the seed sprouts relative to the time of year, so that they come up at a time when the seed is produced in the fall. They need to experience the winter. It's called vernalization, undergoing that process of experiencing the winter, removing the inhibitor or producing the usable sugar, and then they can grow in the spring. And it helps them time growth relative to climate. I'll put a link to that video here at the end of this if you want to go back and look at it. Today it is early spring. We are in April, and I am starting to work with some seeds for the year. And we're going to talk about seed coat dormancy, the second way that a seed can be dormant. This is not about, embryo dormancy is about timing germination relative to climate. Seed coat dormancy is about delaying germination so that not all of the seed sprouts at the same time. Right? If you think about a plant, it has to, the expression, grow where you're planted, comes about for a reason, right? The plant has to grow where the seed falls, and it really doesn't have any choice in that. So, one of the strategies that a lot of plants will use is they will produce a seed with a very thick seed coat that takes a long time to degrade in nature before the seed is able to absorb water and germinate. Okay? So this is about stretching the length of time over which seeds grow. So a plant that has seed coat dormancy is taking a regeneration strategy where it's saying, I don't know when it will be ideal conditions for my offspring to grow. So I'll make sure that from one good seed drop, there is the potential to germinate for many, many years. Okay? So some of that seed will be ready in a year or two and grow. Maybe the conditions are poor. But that's okay, because other seeds took longer to have the seed coat degraded. So they'll grow the year after that. And then still others will grow the year after that. Still others will grow the year after that. So you're taking one seed drop and saying, the seed drop will germinate sporadically for a decade or more. Right? There are seeds that can live literally, that have germinated successfully literally thousands of years later. Lotus is very well known for this. So seed coat dormancy presents a very different problem. When you have embryo dormancy, you stratify it right. You look up a table of data. You read how many days of cold a particular species needs. You give them that, and then they all grow. Right? Seed coat dormancy is a little different because you have to, in order to get them all to grow on your time scale, you have to break down that seed coat on a whole batch of seeds all at once. And then you plant them after that. Okay? There's two ways to do that. There's the fun way and there's the annoying way. The third way involves exposing them to caustic acids. We're not even going to talk about that way. The fun way works well with a lot of things that strengthen their seed coat by filling it with waxes. Okay? This is really common in the bean and pea family. The legumes, okay, is they will produce a seed coat that is very, very waxy. I'm not sure if it's going to pick up in the camera here. Can you see my little seeds in the camera, hon? Okay. Can you see that there's a little bit of sheen on them? Okay, they're very waxy seeds. These are Japanese pagoda trees, Sephora japonica. And they're not a huge seed, but when you hold them in your fingers and look at them in the light, you'll see they have a waxy luster. Okay? So for many legumes, all you need to do is to break down the waxes, and we can do that with some hot water. This water, you can see the steam rising. This is boiling water. I pour boiling water over the seed, okay, once and let it cool down. Let it sit overnight. Next day, come and see which seeds have become swollen. Sometimes also they'll lighten in color. These are some Leditzia's honey locust that I did this morning. And let me find one here. There's one that didn't, well, it's absorbing water. These I got 100% treatment first try. I was hoping there would be a few recalcitrant little guys. This guy's a little bit behind schedule. But you see, he's a little bit smaller than the rest. Okay? And if you look at this one, is this zoomed in all the way? In frame? Is my hand in frame? Okay, good. So if you see this one, you see how the back is swollen, but the tip is still a little bit small? Okay? That's how they look when they work. So you let these soak until they're all evenly swollen, and then you just plant them. And if you look at a couple of them, like this one, you can see there's a little bit of that wax that's sloughing off there. Okay, that's the waxy coating that the hot water broke down. So when you're dealing with these, and there are many legumes for which this is appropriate. Okay? It's really fun with some of the gigantic legumes. Like there's a Kentucky coffee tree has a seed about that big, right about the size of a quarter, and sometimes even a little bigger than a quarter. But you do this on them, and they just like explode this big waxy husk off of themselves the next day, and they're twice their size. It's really kind of fun to watch. Smaller. Both of these are trees. Honey locust and Sephora's are both tree-sized legumes. But these guys are going to get the treatment here as soon as I'm done this video. These are Petiomeliums, prairie turnip. They're going to get the same treatment. And not all legumes, like don't go do this to your garden peas, you'll kill them, right? But many legumes benefit from this practice, okay? And this is the first form of scarification. Stratification is about the embryo dormancy, the cold treatment, and vernalizing your seed. Scarification is about breaking through the seed coat. This hot water method only works for seed that has a waxy coating that's providing the water resiliency that keeps it from sprouting. This also works well for a lot of what's called serotinous seeds. Serotinous trees are trees that have to have their seed exposed to fire. And you can do that with this as well. But there's also seeds that, we'll drop my little seed, have such a thick coat, they're not waxy, they're just woody. They just have a very thick outer coat. Okay? So this is a yellow thorn, okay, Xanthoceras seed. It's an Asian species. And it just has an outlandishly thick seed coat. Okay? Hot water treatment won't work on these. This is the less fun way to do this. For these guys, you have to take your seed, get this bigger one, okay? And we're actually going to take a file and we're going to file a groove in it. Okay? This is boring. Very boring, but important if you want to work with these sorts of things. Now, when you look at your seed, there's usually a pointy end. That's where it attached to the pollen tube coming down in. And usually your embryo is fairly close to that, and in between the two seed leaves are cotyledon. Okay? So we don't want to go along the suture, if you can see a suture. And we don't want to go in right at that point or directly opposite to that point, because sometimes you'll have a really long embryo that spreads out lengthwise along the seed. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to come in, so you don't mess up and damage your embryo. Hold that pointy bit in the back, and then come in to the flat. Okay? And just I like to do this with the edge of a file. And these guys take some time. A little easy if you hold it against the table. Okay. And just cut a little groove down in. Until you see a color change. The cotyledon will be white. Okay? So as soon as you get to the white part, still brown, like I said, this takes some effort. Still going. Like I said, some of these are outlandishly thick. There, I just broke through. Okay? I can see the inner sheath around the cotyledon. Now, this is a healthy 1/8 inch deep. Right? This is not a shallow groove I cut in the seed. These seeds on these little guys are thick as walnuts, right? Black walnut holes, even though it's a small seed. So now that I've cut that groove, it will be able to absorb water immediately. So once I get through the rest of this pack, I'll have them all in a little bowl, and then I can come back and soak them. And again, they will swell, and you'll be amazed. This hard outer coat that you spent all of this time carving your way through will just pop off in 24 hours as they absorb water, just blow open the suture. Okay? So those are the two ways to scarify seed. That's this process of scarification. If you start reading, these are the two ways I'd recommend. If you start reading in the literature about sulfuric acid treatments, stay away from that. That is a proper laboratory science. You need to be able to very accurately control your concentration of acid. It does work, but it's not something that you want to just do in your kitchen, right? That's battery acid. It's very easy. If you don't do it enough, it doesn't do anything. If you do it too much, you kill the seed. And if you spill it, you now have concentrated sulfuric acid can give you a second or third degree burn in a time period of seconds to minutes, depending on concentration. Very, very quickly. So it's a nasty material that you don't want to work with unless you are properly trained in chemical hygiene and have the equipment to manage those materials safely. So don't do that. Not even going to talk about it beyond saying you'll see it in the literature, ignore the literature on that. Okay? Either do a hot water treatment or sand through. Now, last thing I want to address here is how do you know which of these methods to apply? And there are tables of data. There are books out there on woody vegetation propagation for different regions of the world. You just kind of have to look around and find one. I have a couple for North America. But they're not readily available, and they are hard to hunt up. The good news is, most of the better seed companies that provide seeds that you're going to have to do this sort of thing with will give you information on how to treat their seed. Okay? So I'll give you a couple of names. These I got from F.W. Schumacher, treeshrubseeds.com. Okay? And I've got a lot of seed from them. I've always been happy with it. I am not sponsored. This is my own opinions. Okay? I should add that in. A second one I'll give a good shout out to is Prairie Moon Nursery. Okay. They sell quite a lot of seed. They sell inoculant for all of their legumes, and they give you very detailed information on what sort of germination treatment the seed needs. Okay. So Prairie Moon Nursery, clumsy me. Prairie Moon Nursery is a good one. And Strictly Medicinal, owned by the Czech family. Not all of their seed is finicky. They sell quite a few regular varieties in their catalog, but when you start getting into some of the perennial medicinal species, you get special requirements, and they do a very good job of describing how to handle their seed. And I'll put links in the descriptions to these three companies that I'm mentioning. And their catalogs are resources. Right? So you can look stuff up there and get information. A fourth one I should give a shout out to is the Plants for a Future database, which is an online database. They give propagation information for a lot of these things. Sometimes it has all of the detail you could ever want. Sometimes you wish it had a little bit more detail, depending on what species you're looking at and how well documented it is in the resources that they're using. But that's also a very good source of information on what needs handled in what way. So I hope that you will consider this. When you start learning these skills of propagation and going beyond just your common garden vegetables, it really does open up an entire new world of plants that you can grow, both for food, both for the practical food, medicine, livestock, fodder type applications, and just for beauty. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's really advantageous to learn some of these techniques because it's not bad. These guys, remember I said, they all swelled. Some are a little ahead, some are a little behind schedule, but they all swelled just from pouring hot water on them like I did there, and then I'll plant them like tomatoes. No big deal. And they'll grow a bunch of nice trees for me. So, I hope you will try this at home. I also hope that you'll give this video a thumbs up and come visit us next time on Always Rising Farm YouTube channel.